Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
Hey farmers, do you run a precision planting monitor in your planter tractor? Boyd Farm Outfitters is hosting our annual 2020 Monitor Clinic at the Holthus Center in York on Wednesday, March 19th. They'll run through everything on the monitor, from basic setup to more complex downforce settings, and everything in between. You'll learn agronomy principles behind some of the monitor settings and will leave refreshed and ready to plant. Representatives from Precision Planting will be on hand to handle any questions that you can throw at them. Visit BoykFarmOutfitters.com for all the details and to reserve your spot.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Husker Hoops just wrapped up as Williams turns the corner, 2 more into the line, a chance for 3, Bryce Williams. Hustle down to the block, post up, and go to work now on 93.7 The Ticket. And the offensive rebound, fair game, Butunjo. The post-game post-up is sponsored by Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, and Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits.
There's a CJ, same spot, Sabres it. He is red hot. A CJ ahead, half court. Ulis good if it goes, and it counts. Aaron Ulis with a half court 3
on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome in to the Husker Hoops post-game show. It's going to be the last one at that, as well as the Husker season ends up. Eric Strickland joining me as always to my left. We'll have Austin Orman as well joining us. 402-464-5685. You guys can give us your thoughts. Nebraska loses to Iowa at home. Final score of this one, 83-68. Eric Strickland, your thoughts?
Bruh.
Yeah, and real quick before we go on a rant here, I do got to mention, shout out to our sponsors, Action Heating, Plumbing, and Electric, and of course, Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits. I think I said this last week. I don't want to say this every week, but it's like, it might be a good time. Go get some spirits yourself.
Bruh. That's all I can say. Bruh with the airplane facepalm, where everybody in the stadium probably was doing the airplane playing facepalm today. It was look, you have no one to blame but yourself, first and foremost. You on senior day, you literally, like, I could tell it was all bad from the beginning. I could tell the body language wasn't showing me what I needed to see. I'm going to get into it statistically as we delve into the numbers and we start talking about how this game played out. But just in a nutshell, I'll dig into that and I'll show you where the focus, the mentality, it was more on Iowa's side because they could have been down double digits. Iowa could have. Mm-hmm. But Nebraska didn't take advantage of it early in that game. Like, in that game, you want to blitzkrieg, railroad, and then you want them to expend and have to expend energy because the only way you get back into games is by stops. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, when we used to practice, Harrison, one of the hardest drills was when you're in the gauntlet and it's a stops game where the only way you get off of defense and onto offense. So it forced you to do a couple of things. It forced you to be very efficient and effective offensively so you don't have to go on defense. That means taking good shots, setting screens, doing all of those things. But you have to expend so much energy. And this is what Nebraska's problem has been over the last 4 to 5 games and throughout stretches before, is you're not good enough to allow teams to stay in with you, especially when you're getting good shots, good opportunities, and you're just not knocking them down. That then allows them to get back in the game. And then there's a shift in this game that happened late in the second half where you see the pressure cooker turns on for Nebraska, and Iowa got a lot more comfortable. When you're on the road, everything's against you. You stay, your goal is to stay in the game within striking distance, and then you kind of get into a nice little flow and feel good about yourself. And you saw that by some of the shots that they were able to make down the stretch. Iowa, I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, some of those threes that are taken, especially later in the game, is like these guys are just confident, you know. And you know, I was telling Strick about this off air. I think that's the thing that I'm not calling any players out individually, but that's the thing that probably pissed me off most is like I just seeing Iowa's body language, the way they were dropping back on defense on their side. John, you know, I'm not saying there's anything dirty on their end, but they were fired up. They were jawing a little bit. And it's just like, man, you're at home, senior day. This is the last game you're going to get with this group of guys. You know, win or lose, but there's got to be some fight in there. And it's not that, you know, the guys weren't trying, but there's certain plays, hustle plays out there that just drove me mad a little bit. And it's, you know, we've been talking in circles about this all year. Do you need Bryce to score 30? That's unrealistic. You know, if you want him to do that every game, you can't have Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary be 1-2. And if not one of those guys is going, which today was Bryce Williams, that's it. Like the offense just hasn't been good enough. You asked me before, look up the record of how many games Nebraska's won when the other team scored 75 points or more. Our record's 1-10. The one win being to South Dakota.
Yeah.
Which, our offense better be able to score over 75 points, and that beat them offensively, which we were. But, I mean, it's just, you know, it comes down to the roster construction. I think if there's anything about Fred Hoiberg that you'd critique this year is probably just the roster construction. In-rank mass was somewhat of a blow, but you kind of knew that after that Kansas State game last year. This was an injury. He's probably going to have some offseason surgery. Just, you know, there wasn't enough. I'm not chasing Fred Hoiberg out of town. Don't get me wrong. Keep in mind, this is the best record Nebraska's had within the first 6 years of any head coach at the University of Nebraska, which is hard to believe considering he had the roster with the COVID year. He had the roster with Brant Banks, the freaking tackle for Husker football, and he still got one of the best records. But this year, just the roster was never. I said this before the season, you know, off air, because I don't just like want to give negative takes for no reason. I just didn't see this roster having enough to be in the picture, to go compete and go dancing. So I give Fred Hoiberg for credit for, I think, actually overperforming despite as bad as it looked. I mean, this offense has really just been stuck over and over and over. But at the same time, it also falls on him. You got to figure out a way to get a better roster together. How many years in a row we just haven't had a point guard we're comfortable with?
Yeah, and well, see, that's the thing. If you construct a roster a certain way, then you also have to construct your offense a certain way to fit the roster. You don't, unless you have super athletes and distinct players that do distinct things, then maybe it works for you. But when you don't have the shooting that you need, guys that can stretch, also versatile big men position, then you got to go to something a little bit more traditional. And it just seemed throughout this whole year, Harrison, that everything was so difficult. Like there were times where I would say there were times that I've seen games where offensively they were cutting at the right time into the right spaces, finding those guys. But it was like once the scouting report caught up with them and they figured they could play them a certain way, there was really no way of adjustment.
So
as a player, you didn't do that.
I think it ties on. This is from the text line, unknown texter, just wants to know what happened mid-year. And you're saying you think it was just the scouting reports out on.
Yeah, it catches up. I mean, okay. The scouting report, Harrison, is always it's living. It's live. It's not a stagnant stop. It's not a thing like like a wall, or it doesn't have that. It's pliable. It's always moving. It's changing. Throughout a year, here's the progression of things the way that they should go. Off season, you work on things that you didn't do well, weaknesses. Because the scouting report's gonna dictate, okay, weak left-hand drive, can't pass off the left, doesn't shoot well going to his left, don't post game, they start adding these things up. So you have to be able to do a self-check of what those weaknesses were. Then you work on in the season, you work on weaknesses off season, tighten them up before the season. In season, this is where the scouting report is not dead. What I'm talking about, it's alive. So first half from non-con, there are things that people are going to learn about you. Style, the way that you play. Oh, no mid-range, run him off the three, things that they did to a season that he didn't adjust. So you have to know then, coming into specific games, probably the way that they're going to cover you. Okay, so then you're watching, okay, they're not covering me this way. Okay, they're going underneath. So then I need to make adjustments. Same thing with pick and roll. Oh, they're going underneath. So then I need to move my pick and rolls a little lower. You don't see that with Nebraska.
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of the post game. That's somewhat dying in the league. The beauty of the post game is I'm setting you up for the next one.
Yeah.
You understand what the scouting report says on you, and you're just constantly getting ready, knowing what they were trying to do, and you're just, pivoting to the other side here. Real quick on text line. We do got the people. Yes, Nebraska basketball, because of that loss to Iowa, they are now 16 in the Big Ten standings. That knocks them out of the Big Ten tournament. So this is the end of the season, unfortunately, for Husker men's basketball. And,
And remember, we've been talking about this looks very close to what Nebraska football has looked like. Mm-hmm. You had multiple opportunities to punch your ticket, not only to the dance, but into the Big Ten tournament with home games. Guys had them on the run and on the road. You just weren't able to complete the task.
And I should correct, NIT possibility.
NIT is a possibility.
Yeah. So
they probably have a good enough resume. They probably do, but it's very possible that they may look at taking someone else because of just how far you've fallen over the course. I personally think their resume is good enough for the NIT. I think they're a good enough team for it.
Just depends how badly.
But
they
the
look
way
at
that they look at
skid at the end there.
Do we really want that? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But again, I talk about now you're in season. Nebraska, Raleigh, and those guys never realized where they could be beneficial to the team. You see flashes of it. There have been times where Raleigh would get the ball kind of free throw line extended out past the three, and then that screen comes a little bit lower, and then boom, he gets in there. Good pocket pass for a finish, lob for a finish. You should have been doing more of that. How can I be effective? Transition. They've got those secondary transition opportunities. You only see a piece of it every now and then.
Well, that was the beauty of that Oregon game. If you remember going back, Oregon, that's when I thought the season was turning around, because I was like, they're figuring it out. The team chemistry's there. They're moving on breaks. A lot of my problems with this, and you can, because you're the basketball guy, so you can just correct me straight up if I'm wrong here. But when you have an offense that's struggling as bad as Nebraska does over and over and over, the lack of intensity to try to push the ball drove me nuts this year. It hasn't been easy ever at a half court, unless it's an easy find inside off a great pass, or Bryce Williams making
a tough shot.
Yeah, and when Bryce Williams is going, you're right to let him shoot because other guys are just hoping, but that can't be the game plan. So what drove me, and I just thought the urgency to push the ball with how bad our offense has been. I get you might sacrifice a little bit, risking some turnovers, playing that aggressive, but you can't. I mean, we've had too many games where the scoring was so woeful in that first half. 2 21-point first halves. A game where you kept Michigan under 50, but you lost. You got to figure out ways to get offense. Even if it's cheap offense, take it. You absolutely need anything you can get. I just, that amazed me. We just rarely push the ball this year.
That's what I've been talking about, Harrison. Yeah. You've got to as a staff and as players to figure out how we could be effective. Okay. You saw Ulyss. Ulyss is a little bit more shifty. He should have lived
fast break
with floaters and fast break.
He
should have lived there. He should have been on the attack, either to the rim or deep penetration pause for any types of kickouts. You know what I'm saying?
And if you're Braxton Mann or Andrew Morgan, or get downhill with
them, because they've struggled both at the free throw line, and they kind of get caught in these half areas to where I can't really get the ball. You're a little bit too far. That means you 2 dribbles away.
Yeah, you're rolling or hanging out.
Yeah, right?
There's been a lot of that this year.
They should always been hard roll, front of the rim, catch, straight up, finish, maybe make a free throw. Like, their focus should have been on finishing. Now, I can get back to that number if we want to, as to why I told you this game was going to not go well for them. You ready? When you're at home, Big 10 tournaments on the line, and your resume's on the line, and it's your second quad 3 loss in a row. Okay. That means you would want to have premier focus on scouting report, execution, doing things throughout this game. You want to know what they shot with layups?
I don't know if I want to know, but let's hear it.
They were 7 for 13 at half. You know what they ended up? And you saw a lot of it up here. 10 for 22. Layups.
I wish shot better from the 3-point line.
And then if you don't shoot well from the 3-point line,
well, it just adds to the damage.
It makes it worse. So second half, Nebraska.
We only scored, I think, 8 field goals.
8 field goals. Listen, you shot 28% at half, and 23 from 3. And when we talk about these differentials, right? We always talk about them. The differentials were pretty equal. What made this game this way? They had off the bench. Off the bench, they killed you 34-14.
Mm-hmm.
So Nebraska's been struggled. They've been tightening up their bench. Everything else is pretty equal across the board. And so you shoot 22%, they shoot almost 40. But then they shoot 50% from the field. That tells me you're not focused defensively, because their rotations were terrible. Guys were hanging out too long. I'm up there with Austin telling them he should be gone. Oh, in that situation, you don't just give him baseline, you square him up. I'm telling them, like,
well, there's times you got to go over the screen as well. You're just giving a wide open 3.
It's wild.
Sanford pops off in the second half. We're switching at times, and you got Morgan on there, some of their better 3-point shooters. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but we do got to throw it to break here. So again, you guys can keep joining in 402-464-5685. We're not going to be able to get to them all, of course, and as well as the YouTube chat and all Facebook, all that good stuff. This is Harrison Arns, Eric Strickland. We will be joined by Austin Norman later. I'm sure he's getting down there ready for the press conference. So we'll keep this thing rolling. We got plenty left here. Post-game show, Nebraska men's basketball. They fall to Iowa at home. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a little bit.
At Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, we're ready, reliable, and recommended. Water heater acting up or your sump pump on the fritz? Call Action. Summer's around the corner. Is your AC working? Are you sure? Call Action. Electrical problems? I'm telling you, call Action. Call Action for a free same-day estimate or a trusted second opinion. You heard that right, a free same-day estimate. 402-423-6960. ActionLincoln.com.
Are you a skilled mechanic looking for your next big opportunity? Constructors is hiring. We're looking for experienced mechanics to join our family-owned team. We offer competitive wages, great benefits, brand new service trucks, OEM-level diagnostic software, and career growth opportunities. Positions include lead and A-level mechanics for our shop and multiple field technicians. If you're driven and ready to grow with a company that's been around since 1908, apply today at constructorslincoln.com.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
John Henry's has a brand new membership club to protect your entire home in one program. With a VIP and a deluxe option, we will help you find the plan that best fits your needs. Receive discounts on services and equipment, priority service, complimentary inspections, and so much more. Protect your home's plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical systems all in one membership. Call John Henry's to learn more.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air.
And electrical.
Hello?
Believe it or not, old phones are one of the most common pain points in offices today. Many of these phones are beyond repair because parts aren't available to fix outdated devices. Whether it's a traditional phone system or cloud-based VoIP technology, Hamilton Business Phones can help upgrade your connection. We make it easy to sync your office phone with your cell for seamless call handling, no matter where you work. If your current office phone can't do this, you deserve better. Hire your local experts. Hire Hamilton at hamiltonisbusiness.com.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard. Increase security and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
It may not feel like it, but planting season is on its way, and now's the time to upgrade your equipment with a late model John Deere planter from Acres Equipment. Acres has an entire lineup of John Deere planters equipped with the latest technology to ensure planting accuracy throughout your field. And to get you up and going, each planter purchased from Acres includes in-field startup support from one of our Precision Ag professionals. Warmer weather is coming soon, so don't delay. Visit your local Acres for details. Offer expires April 30th, 2025.
Shopping for new flooring is different today. Getting your questions answered, making the right selection, getting the best value, and installed quickly and professionally. Visit ostreetcarpet.com or shop our store. We'll answer all your questions and help you make the right choice. You'll be enjoying your new floor in just days for less than you'd pay elsewhere. Carpet, vinyl, wood, laminate, tile, and area rugs. We've got it all.
O Street Carpet.
1732 O Street. Family owned and operated. Always the best value.
Big box stores are tempting for buying equipment for your high schooler in sports or for yourself in your sports leisures. But buying new is awfully expensive. Why not go somewhere with new and used options? Play It Again Sports has quality, slightly to gently used equipment, and 50% of their inventory is actually new equipment. And it's more than baseball, softball, and golf. They also have equipment for disc golf, fitness, hockey, and more. Plus, they're always buying products. Bring your gear you're done with and get trade money on the spot. Play It Again Sports at 48th and Vine.
All right, welcome back in. Husker Hoops postgame show. Harrison Arns on the ones and twos. Got the host, Eric Strickland, to my left as always. You guys can join in 402-464-5685. That is the Sartor Hamann text line, as well as any of the streams. And Eric Strickland, I think it's fair to mention that we got quite the rebuild. Well, I shouldn't say we, but Fred Hoiberg and staff has quite the rebuild. We're talking about some of the seniors up in the partying, and I was looking at the text line. A lot of those guys are pointing that out as well. Andrew Morgan gone. Braxton Mia gone. Bryce, obviously he's gone. Jawan, he's gone. Connor's got another year left. Aaron Eulis is gone. Who am I missing here? Is that everybody? Rick Mass, potentially. He can definitely just go pro if he wants to.
He could go back to his
NBA,
home country and probably do well, but without any like Olympics or anything to where he could showcase himself, it would be tough for him to get top tier money.
Mm-hmm.
If he's smart, I would, because I think he has a good leverage point, especially for NIL.
Oh, especially with what we need coming. We need some of that veteran leadership who's used to the program.
So I think he can. I think he could get good enough money, stay, build his resume. He would be wise to do that if I was him with the way things look right now.
Yeah, and I think, just a gut feeling, I have no inside information. I think he will be back. But either way, I mean, just all that to say the picture of like, we got an entire new roster. And
if I'm him though, I'm really having discussions with Fred.
Well, how much money am I going to make? Seriously.
Not only that, but who you trying to bring in here? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to need you to paint me a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to need you to show me the vision, because the way it looks, okay, I can see if I was there how it would work out. But then I see that we still athletically and, in a lot of ways are not matched with the conference. So I would be wanting to know who's shooter, what shooter. Okay, is it going to be the young fellow? What's Janowski looking like in the offseason? Okay, okay, Frager. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, who are we looking at in the portal?
Who's going to be handling the ball so I don't have to all game? Like I'd want to know if I'm him.
Not rightfully so. Like you got to figure out which team you're signing up for, because this is it's going to be a completely different team than what he originally played with. We kind of talked about that, previously, but this team is so already, not drastically, but different enough from last year. And we go forward one more year. I mean, we're pretty much clean slate with only a few guys remaining, and most of those guys remaining are going to be on the way out the door too soon. So, my biggest fear in all this is like, I think Nate Lenzer is a really good defensive-minded coach. I think Fred Hoiberg's a great offensive-minded coach. It's not just me saying that. That's coaches around the league in the NBA and in college hoops. The problem is, I don't know if there's an elite recruiter. I don't know if it's because we don't have enough NIL money. But I would think today in college hoops, depending on how high up of priority it is for the athletics program, it only takes a few guys. Plus, you still need some good recruiting, though, to fill that depth. That's what killed Nebraska today. Iowa's bench was ready to go. Nebraska's bench and starters have been interchangeable because neither of them, it doesn't seem to matter who's been on the court for us. But even Iowa, a team who's really struggled all year, more so because their defense, not their offense. Their offense, they could find offense on the bench. This year, too many times, Fred Hoiberg looked to his left
and was like,
not an answer on here. I need a point guard. We don't got one. I need somebody who can set up Bryce. We don't got one. I need a big who's going to be just a monster down there and get us rebounds right now. I don't got one. I need a confident shooter right now. Esijan had it. He's cold right now, and he hasn't found it since. So it just got to the end of the year where, that's just the biggest critique I have, on the entire season was this roster. What do you think the realistic expectations, like to you, now that it's all said and done? Yes, NIT possibility, but before the season started, realistically, where were you at on this roster?
Early in the season?
The season, you saw the roster, and I'll give you after the first 3 games.
I wasn't,
what they looked like.
I wasn't sold on him, but I was impressed that I felt that he was getting the most out of what he had. I still thought that they weren't using the personnel the correct way. There's some things I would have, been doing with the bigs and making, I would have probably run more sets than free flow, but I understood. Like, I could see why they were doing it, and then I was impressed that they made the run that they made. Then you start seeing scouting reports catch up, and you start seeing how tough it was to get shots. And they had to make it was like other teams had guys that can go get a shot that was needed or create a shot and make the game easier. Whereas if they weren't hitting tough shots, it was a tough night.
Yeah.
And that's what ended up happening.
I mean, a lot of those wins too. How many of those wins were off the back of Bryce Williams hitting tough shot after tough shot? And a lot of those sending us in overtime, just keeping us close.
So then what happens is, now that as a coach, you have a short bench. So now mentally, what happens with players is they come to the realization that, yes, the bench is getting shorter. I'm playing more minutes now. What do I need to do to preserve energy to be sustained throughout this game? Hence, first half slow starts because you're coming in preservation mode. You are not them. There are teams that can come in and start games in preservation mode and still be within reach and close. And they're like, okay, now it's time.
Yeah, and all those teams are dancing. And they're not dancing as 10 seeds, 9 seeds.
Yeah, there's teams that can do that. Nebraska can't. Hence now, short bench, lot of minutes for your 7, slow start, expend more energy to get back into game. No legs at the end, make minor mistakes, lose close games. So in a nutshell, what I just broke down is what you saw throughout the tail end of the season in a broken down state.
I'm laughing because it sounds like a lot of Husker football. Like, it's honestly a lot of the same conversation. It's like, when the game's close, are you executing just the basics of what we're trying to do here? And yes, there's going to be games where, like, this team to me was 20 would have been a hell of a mark, especially with the 12-2 start. But yeah, it just, we'll go ahead. We got to play this 10-second ID so I can gather my thoughts here. But yeah, I mean, just a tough end to the season I think you're partially right with that winning streak coming to an end. But some of that, I just wonder if that's just confidence as well. I get it, the scouting reports out on you guys, but the shooting numbers just got icy cold at times. So with that being said, we'll pause 10 seconds. We'll be right back for station identification.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket.
And then real quick here off of YouTube, we do got Dave. We're talking about Rink Mass before, as he has potential to come back. Obviously, had the injury here. Says, why in the hell would Mass come back with a roster of 9 new transfers? Fair point. I've just argue. I don't know what the pro league would look like where he's from, but you got to imagine, like today, college universities, right? You're getting an NIL check.
Right.
If you're at the University of Nebraska, you're getting the best training facilities, arguably, in college. You're getting an amazing meal plan,
right?
And you're getting all this extra free stuff on the side, and you're somewhat of a celebrity. Like, you could sell that pretty well. Now, I don't know. Again, this all depends on how much Rink Mass can get on the other end in his home country, if it's about home proximity. But
no, it won't be. Go ahead.
That's all I gotta say. Like, there is something to sell. It's not just like, why the hell would he come back? Like, there's plenty of reasons. I'm not saying it's the deciding factor, but I mean, you're getting NIL money today. It's a major difference.
Listen, here's my opinion. I don't think he goes anywhere and transfers anywhere, because then you have to go and establish yourself. Yes, they have film on you, but now you've been off.
No, I'm saying pro at home.
No. I'm getting there.
Okay, strict. I got you.
So I'm working down why I think Rink Mass was going to be back. Okay. He doesn't go anywhere and fit in. He would have to go down. He's already been down at Bradley.
Mm-hmm.
Big time here, big time program. And guess what? You got a whole year to look at that and see that they need you. Leverage. Now you're Rink Mass. You've looked at someone on your team that gave you bootylicious game, garbo game, and he was making la, 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 la. I don't need to tell you. You can look that up. There's available information. But he's making la, 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 la. He's tiptoeing down the yellow brick road.
And his Jordans.
To Oz.
Mm-hmm.
So he's doing good. Rink Mass can look at that and say, you want this? I need that and more. And he should be able to command that.
I mean, he's got
because of what
triple
he's done.
The production off of the reference we're using there.
Right? So now he's got leverage. all the other things you said. You're going to play against top competition. And then if you do what you did the last time, when you go overseas, you've written your ticket. Because he's a catalyst, a piece to why Nebraska got to the tournament last year. If you then, because of your absence, you went from in to out and you bring them back in, this is why Rink Mass, I'm sitting down with Coach Hoiberg. What's the plan, baby?
I think Coach Hoiberg is just running to Rink Mass first. Like, hey, what is the plan?
Right?
We still want to go with this, right?
Like, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah. I mean, like him and I think that was probably one of the harder challenges too. We talk about the point guard a lot, but we went from Derek Walker, who weirdly enough is kind of similar in style of play to Rink Mass. Now, Derek Walker is much more downhill. I'm going to put your shoulder in the end and get my 2 points. But Rink Mass was also get it at the high, put his shoulder down, but he'd be a little more finesse about it.
Yeah.
And he could stretch it out. And, that was
he has good counters.
Really good counters to deal with
good
it.
Counters.
And,
better footwork. I was hoping Morgan would be a piece of that, but Morgan's footwork just didn't measure up to me.
Unless it's a reverse layup. He had that one.
Yeah.
Down thing. That was kind of his, go-to move all the time. But yeah, I mean, it just, without that high-low game, this team was dead in the water. And I mean, what you've gotten experience to see Fred Hoiberg probably longer than I have. Bulls, Iowa State, now here in Nebraska. When you see his offense, what is the plan? Like, what do you see in his offense? What is he trying to go to every time? Because, last year was pretty clear. A lot of high and low game. We got great shooters in Keisei Tamanaga and big wings and Juwan Gary and Bryce, but it was inside to set up the outside for Keisei or let Rink Mass go to work if he's got a mismatch. This year, watching Nebraska, I could never figure out what is the game plan outside of just trying to run a set for an open three.
Yeah.
Which, more often than not, especially later in the year, bricked off the back iron.
He found something with Rink Mass. He was hoping he could duplicate it with Burke.
Yeah.
No. He was hoping if he had Burke working the way that he had hoped, similar to Mass, he felt that high-low game would be increased and be better because of Morgan and Mia, especially with Mia.
Yeah.
Mia in that dunk position that Alec was in last year, that at times had great games, at times struggled, wasn't able to finish. I believe Mia finishes dunking most of them.
Yeah.
So I think what he had in mind, the injury, okay, let me find something with that type of versatility, i.e. Burr-Ukton gel, but he don't have heart to really go and take over. He just really doesn't. So I began to wonder where the friction came from. And if I'm a player like Bryce or I'm on any of those other players and I'm looking and I'm like, man, garbage. Y'all wouldn't pay me, but pay him. Internal friction. 6-game lose. I mean, I can walk you down all the stuff and tell you, because not only because I've been through it, but you can just kind of, you can kind of infer.
Well, now there's money in it too. You didn't even have to deal with money, and that stuff exists.
No.
Now
exactly.
we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, going to certain guys. And obviously I'm not in those locker rooms. I don't know how well known it is, but I'm sure they talk about it time to time. You see your boy show up in a nice new car and like, how'd you pay for that one? I didn't realize you're making it that well, but yeah, it's just okay.
And don't get it twisted. We did that in the NBA too.
Oh, sure.
There are people that, because it would, in the USA Today, they would come out and they would give the salaries, and people was looking down the bench like,
public information.
What? Kevin Ali got what? You know what I'm saying? Like you start having beef. So then when I see you, I'm trying to get you on site. This is what y'all giving. Let me, what I mean? People and on the same team and all that. So it's a weird thing. And I'm sure that happened with Nebraska too.
How good do you think Nebraska's NIL operations are in basketball? And I'm not looking for a number, but just like roughly in the Big Ten, upper tier, middle tier, lower tier, bottom of the barrel, like where do you see just basketball? We're not talking anything else.
I think it's abysmal. And what's sad is, I've had some pretty extensive conversations with DP, and I won't divulge what that is, but let me just tell you, Nebraska's sitting on a hefty pot of money that they earn in excess yearly. That if Nebraska wanted its programs to go to another level, they easily could. But for me, it's that backwards mentality of I'm slow, I'm behind. But you could be in the forefront again, but it's kind of like they don't want to with the programs. And it's the weirdest thing. Now, don't get it twisted. They want their football program too. But even you see the hesitancy on a lot of that as well. I think they could if they want to, because they're sitting on a hefty pot of gold.
And you need to, and that's the part where the Midwest flow sometimes drives you nuts. Because I mean, look at Tom Osborne and what he did for football, strength training program. He started that thing up. Nobody else was doing that, but it's like, you know what, get ahead of it. And all of a sudden you became a powerhouse program. The same thing for Nebraska basketball, especially in the Big Ten. Like and again, I don't know what the numbers are, but we're talking about possibly like 5-6 transfers. Like, we're going to have to get quite a few guys in here to patch this roster together. And if we cheap out on it, are we going to slam on the table and be upset with Fred Hoiberg again? I don't know how competitive that money is in the Big Ten with all the recruits. But if everything you said is true, like, it's going to be tough to fill up a roster like that and then expect the next year to go dancing. And if you don't go dancing, Fred Hoiberg, might be the scapegoat. It might just come down to roster construction, or did you have the funds to build the roster you necessarily wanted? But, all to say, we'll go ahead, throw it to break here. I do believe we got Austin Orman ready to join us. Shout out to the seniors, that did have their moment. It was a bumpy ride. I will say this as I go to break here and we get ready for Austin Orman. This team, as crazy as it sounds to say after this Iowa loss, I still think they overachieved. You could say they maybe just achieved what they were about, now counting at being 12-2 to finish with only 17 wins. But before the season, I would have been astounded to know that this was going to be another March Madness team, and they just fell short. But nonetheless, shout out to the guys, senior, especially the guys, Juwan Gary, Bryce Williams. Juwan Gary, very emotional after it for obvious reasons. He had a great game today, gave it his all, and it might not be the end. We'll see about NIT, but that's going to do it for this segment. Don't go anywhere. We'll keep things rolling. We'll have Austin Orman join us on the other side. This is a Husker Hoops post-game show. Talk to you in a little bit.
At Parkview Animal Hospital in Lincoln, it's not just their professional care that sets them apart, but their warm staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Whether it's for a routine checkup or a comprehensive medical procedure, at Parkview, your pet isn't just another number, but a valued member of their caring family. Visit them at PAHLincoln.com today and in person just south of 14th and Pine Lake Road. Parkview Animal Hospital, your pet, their passion for happier, healthier, furry friends.
At Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, we're ready, reliable, and recommended. Water heater acting up or your sump pump on the fritz? Call Action. Summer's around the corner. Is your AC working? Are you sure? Call Action. Electrical problems? I'm telling you, call Action. Call Action for a free same-day estimate or a trusted second opinion. You heard that right, a free same-day estimate. 402-423-6960. ActionLincoln.com.
I used to smoke. I thought of cigarettes as my best friend.
They were always there for me when I needed a break.
I also thought cigarettes were my best friend, and then they gave me peripheral artery disease.
I smoked and had a stroke. Actually, multiple strokes.
I smoked and have heart disease. Here's my tip. If cigarettes are your friend, you need a better friend.
Call the Nebraska Tobacco Quit Line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, 1-800-784-8669. Paid for by Tobacco Free Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Garage doors can break down or quit working at the worst times. At Doors Plus, they understand that a broken garage door sometimes means repair and not replace. Sometimes, all you need to make your door like new again is a few bolts, a realignment, or even a new balance. Trust the pros at Doors Plus to handle your garage door repair the right way so you can get on with your busy schedule. Visit them online at DoorsPlusLLC.com or give them a call today at 402-590-5800. Doors Plus, garage doors and more.
Your home is your empire. Protect it with Empire Fence. Get a free instant quote with the online estimating tool at empire-fence.com. See an upfront estimate with no hidden fees. An Empire Fence can provide privacy and improve the appearance of your home. Keep kids and pets in or out of your yard, increase security, and add value to your property. Visit empire-fence.com now to view the stylish and maintenance-free possibilities for your home and get a free instant online quote. Let Empire Fence protect your empire.
Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall to Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
Opportunity can knock at any moment. When it does, you can't afford to miss a call. That's why you need a business phone system that gives your team the flexibility to answer anytime, anywhere. Whether you're working from the office, at home, or on the go, we make it easy to equip your business with the right tools for smooth, professional call handling. We enhance the efficiency technology provides while putting people first in all we do. That's why we meet your business right where you are by offering customized office technology solutions that meet your specific needs. Hamilton Business Technologies. Real people, real technology solutions. Learn more at hamiltonisbusiness.com.
When you get the Planet Fitness Black Card, you can bring a friend anytime you work out. And now through March 13th, get your first month free when you join. You heard that right. Conquer the stair climber with your partner in climb. Enjoy a post-workout recovery session in the hydro massage. And do it all again with access to any of our 2,700 convenient locations. So, you coming? Get your first month free and all the perks with the PF Black Card for just $1 down, $24.99 a month. Cancel anytime. Deal ends March 13th. See Club for details.
Hi, it's Joel Norman, the voice of your Lincoln Stars hockey team. Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket to hear the latest on the Stars with myself, head coach Rocky Russo, and special player guests.
Early break.
Joy to the world, the Lord is.
That's the Christmas one. That's not this one. Is that why you were confused? Oh wow, I got it's Christmas
Let
Eve.
earth receive her king.
Could you imagine all of a sudden just being at midnight mass and all of a sudden Jeremiah was a bull.
Oh, sorry, guys. Wrong one.
Wrong one.
With Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, and Bill Bush from 6 to 9 every weekday morning on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back in. Husker Hoops postgame show as Nebraska falls at home. Final game of the regular season, 63-68. We are now joined by Austin Orman, and I believe Austin Orman kind of want to pick up where we left off, talking some NIL operations at the University of Nebraska. Austin Orman, the floor is yours. Give it to you.
So let's just make sure we're completely clear. Nebraska is not exactly bankrolled. That's not to say Nebraska doesn't have funds available, but Nebraska isn't a rich NIL team. Okay, let's get that out of the system first, right? I can be talked into Nebraska needing to invest more in basketball. I think that is very obvious, very apparent, and very clear at this point. The athletic department needs to set a direction for things where they want to go. But also Nebraska has to spend its money wiser, plain and simple, right? Nebraska can't get into bidding wars with teams. Nebraska has to do an elite job of scouting talent, making sure that they have an identity. And I recruit players to that scheme, that fit, because you guys talked about creating an advantage, right? That's what, the Tom Osborne thing was that you mentioned, Harrison, with the strength program, with the option offense that was ahead of its time. Nebraska basketball, since Stricky was in school, hasn't had that consistent winning identity, right? The last three head coaches either came in as or developed into the last four, right? Collier, Sadler, Miles, and now this version of Fred Hoiberg has turned into a defense-first program. Stricky, you didn't win by playing defense. You ran by running teams out of the gym. It was offense, it was running. Certainly you guys defended and you rebound and all the stuff that goes into winning basketball games, but Nebraska hasn't gone back to that identity that worked. And if we're going to get out of the 90s, that's fine. But I think that the biggest disappointment for me from the regular season is number one, Nebraska finding an identity last year and not sticking to it with what they targeted in the transfer portal. And not talking about Keisei Tominaga, right? That's a unicorn type of player, what he was able to do at his size. But you went out and was Berkay Buikinjel supposed to be the rink mass replacement? If he was, why didn't they use him like that more consistently? Was it because he proved he wasn't capable of it, or was that a coaching decision to use him more as a power wing than a playmaking big? I don't know. But back on the point of innovation, I think we'll tie all of this together. I don't have this as hard data, but I do think that, to my memory, there is only one Big Ten team with a general manager, and I believe that's Michigan, that Dusty May hired. If Nebraska wants to get the most out of its basketball program, if Nebraska wants to do its best job of letting Fred Hoiberg coach basketball, identify talent, right? He's certainly got to be involved in that conversation. But, Fred Hoiberg isn't the talent identification guy. If you want Fred Hoiberg to be in the lab, cooking things up, managing the team he has, Nebraska basketball goes out and hires a general manager this offseason, right? To take care of the numbers, the facts, the figures, to be, I don't know if it's over Fred Hoiberg, under Fred Hoiberg, alongside Fred Hoiberg, but to be able to take some of that stuff off the plate, to be able to sit down with enough of an eye for film to say, Fred, this guy fits what you want to do. Hey, I see why you like this player, but I don't know if he's necessarily what you're going for. Here's what I see. And to have someone there alongside Fred Hoiberg and his assistant coaches in recruiting, especially out of the transfer portal, to say, this is what works for you. Why aren't you going back to this well? Or this is what has always worked for you. Why are you going away from it? That's a place where Nebraska can be an innovator, is to take something off the plate of its head coach, allow him to focus on what he's best at, which is coaching basketball. It shouldn't feel like it, but Nebraska, it does feel like a program at a crossroads right now, missing the Big Ten tournament the year after making the big dance. I tend to agree with Fred Hoiberg. Nebraska should qualify for the postseason. But what we saw this year is that Nebraska made any postseason opportunities much harder to attain, and they essentially did it to themselves by roster construction and some other things that go into it behind the scenes. It's a disappointment of a year for Nebraska, missing out on the Big Ten tournament. I still think if they make the NIT or the college basketball crown, the fact that they've made the postseason 2 years in a row isn't the end of the world. But man, it's got to be better again next year, because Pinnacle Bank Arena emptied out with 12 minutes to go, with 8 minutes to go, and there was maybe half capacity with 4 minutes to go. And that is a tough look and can't be stood for again for a program that you would like to think has higher aspirations than the 5-12 finish to the season.
Austin, the picture that comes to mind, I got like a visual of like a cartoon, right? That Nebraska felt like they were clean, like you washed up, you got nice and clean to get ready to go to whatever the event was that was there for you. And instead of walking and getting dressed and getting yourself together and getting your ticket punched and whatever it is, you went and jumped like a pig into a wallow of mud, just this big old waddle of mud, and got back dirty again. That's what's the weirdest feeling about the picture that I just got in my head of what it looks like after you've been clean. I mean, you're smelling good, and you just see this big old mud puddle, and you're like, oh, I think I just want to be in that thing over there. And you go and jump back into knowing what was in store for you. It's the wildest dynamic. Look, man, I just wasn't built that way, Austin. I just wasn't. I don't care if I was down 20 or 30. I'm still going hard. You're at 3 minutes, and you're still guarding at half court. And then you try to turn it up with a minute. It's like
too late. What's the point?
Too late. You should have been doing that type of stuff at the 4 or 5 minute mark.
Let me jump in on that too, there, Strick, because it seemed like Nebraska waited a little too long, and when they did put some more full court pressure on, it was mostly half-hearted for the most point. We knew coming in that Iowa was going to play fast. It's what they do. Iowa wants as many possessions as they can get because they like to shoot. They don't like to play defense. Strick, never once did we see Aaron Eulis or Sam Hoiberg take it on themselves to pressure 94 feet. To disrupt timing, right? Maybe they're told not to do that, but I can't imagine they're told not to do that. Why doesn't one of them just get a wild hair and pick up Brock Harding or Drew Thelwell for 90 feet? Once to throw Iowa's timing off, right? Iowa has thrown in that 1-2-2 kind of 3/4 court pressure, to slow Nebraska down for years, other opponents down as well. You're telling me Nebraska couldn't even throw on like some sort of 3/4 court pressure, token pressure, to get Iowa or any other opponent into its offense at the 20-second mark instead of the 25-second mark? Are you kidding me? Even with the limitations on this roster, they couldn't break that out for a possession or two at a time. Adam Howard came in from South Alabama with a matchup zone that helped the Jaguars to a top 35 defense ranking a couple times. We didn't see that at all this season, even as a changeup. And that's disappointing. When Nebraska knew it was outgunned, when it had the scouting report on the other team, it didn't throw the curveball. I do want to really quickly here too, Strick, go to YouTube and Mr. Blitzkrieg, who's on a bit of a roll here on YouTube. One of the first comments I think we need to jump off on is, why are Nebraska fans in Nebraska settling for anything less than the NCAA tournament? Because I don't think this athletic department, this administration, the administration that's been in place for a while, has legitimately had a plan in place to make Nebraska a consistent NCAA tournament contender. Yes, it's on the coaches. Yes, it's on the players. But at some point, there needs to be some clear vision from the administration for basketball, for what they want it to look like, with a plan to consistently qualify for the postseason. Friend of the show, friend of the pod, Jacob Bigelow has said multiple times, in his lifetime, he's pretty much my age, when has the athletic department, the athletic director, articulated a vision for basketball, how they want to get it to a consistent point? If the coaches don't know what their athletic director expects it to look like, I get getting out of the way and letting the experts go to work, but at some point, it's just leaving coaches out there to flounder and flail, right? Does Nebraska need a basketball administrator? Does Nebraska need a general manager like I just talked about? I have brought these stats up before, and I think it bears repeating because it's going to make my point for me. Strick, Nebraska has made the postseason 27 times. That's both the NIT and the NCAA tournament combined. In Nebraska, so Nebraska has only 3 times, it was in that stretch that you're familiar with, Strick, only 3 times has Nebraska gone to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, right? That's rare for this program. Of its 15, let me see the numbers here. So, yeah, Nebraska back-to-back NCAA tournaments only 3 times. 3 times they've gone from the NCAA tournament to the NIT, or the NIT equivalent would be the college basketball crown this year. I think that's what's going to end up happening. Nebraska, out of its 27 years making the postseason, only 15 of them, barely more than 50% of the time, has Nebraska made it back to any postseason at all. 40% of the time, they go from the postseason to no postseason. And when I talk about this season being a success, it is the absolute bare minimum, because it was a disappointment. It was a step back in terms of record, in terms of identity. I want to make this very clear so people don't come at me for saying this season was an unequivocal success. No, it was the bare minimum. Nebraska will finish with a winning record, and you don't want to set your company as Northwestern. But Strick, I think they're a perfect example for Nebraska for now, right? Not for long term, but just for now. Northwestern hired Chris Collins coming off of a 13-19 year by Bill Carmody, who went 19-14, 20-14, 20-14, 17-14 before that. A program stuck in neutral, right? They hire Chris Collins. Things don't improve rapidly. 14-19, 15-17, 20-12. They get to the NCAA tournament with a 24-12 record. Well, then the next 4 years after that first NCAA tournament appearance for Chris Collins in Evanston, he goes 15-17, 13-19, 8-23, 9-15 in the COVID year. And then even the year after that, 15-16, right? Northwestern made the tournament, lost, didn't get their win. And then they went 5 years with a losing record, right? Nebraska will have a winning record this year, assuredly. At 17-14, they're guaranteed a winning record. They won't be able to lose enough to get it there. But think about a program like Northwestern, where it built up to Boo Buie and to Ty Berry and to Chase Audige and to Nick Martinelli and to Brooks Barnheiser. Progress isn't necessarily linear. So the bare minimum first step in the right direction for Nebraska is making the postseason back-to-back years, right? For an athletic department that hasn't articulated a vision, if Fred Hoiberg is able to get this team, this roster with all its flaws back to any postseason, it can still be disappointing year over year, but a tiny step forward for the program. So clearly things need to change on the floor for the team and for the coach. But I do think that just as much, if not more work, needs to be done behind the scenes so that we can start taking Nebraska men's basketball, yes, year over year to see if the program is growing, but also in 5-year chunks. Because year over year, it might be a step back, like last season to this season. But if you step back, and take Nebraska losing Jawan Gary and Emmanuel Bandamel to injuries, discovering Derek Walker and Keisei Tominaga, fighting to 500, then making the NCAA tournament, then postseason again the next year, you can have a big picture view of things and a small picture view of things at the same time. A lot needs to change for this program, I guess, is my point at the end of the day.
Yeah, I have to agree. There's definitely a lot that's going to need to be done. It's going to be interesting to see where they begin that process, who remains, who stays, who hits the transfer portal. Are they going to make any additions to the coaching staff? Yeah, this is going to be very interesting to see how quickly they get going. I mean, they're going to have plenty of time to do it, unfortunately.
That they will. Fred Hoiberg was also asked about the transfer portal here in postgame, right? It opens up 2 weeks from tomorrow on Monday the 24th. So, Strick, I'll ask you as we start to shift the conversation. With the transfer portal opening in 2 weeks, what does Nebraska need most? Where does Nebraska need to look? Whether it's a type of player, a certain attribute, a certain skill, what does, in your opinion, Nebraska need most desperately out of the transfer portal this offseason?
They're going to definitely either have to adjust, and this is why it's going to be hard, because are they going to stay the same? Meaning, are they gonna stay with the uniqueness that they were able to create with Derek Walker and Rink Mass, or are they going to have to find someone like Newell down in when he went to Kansas City or Kansas State, Marcus Newell?
Yeah,
somebody like that who can go and get buckets and get money when you need, or create to get money. So either you're going to have to find somebody who is very slick in creation, can create the kind of space that like Alonzo Verge, and do the type of things with that type of athleticism, but really truly this is what they do. I'm this position where they can average 14, 15, 7 with 3-4 rebounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking for that 5 to 7 assists a night guy, because they switched their style up. They're not going to get it with that free flow style. We saw that they had to rely way too much on Bryce. I think you want another guy like Bryce, but more with a little bit more dog to him. Like, look, I'm not saying that he's not a dog. I mean, he showed that he can compete, he can play, and he could do it consistently. I mean, what, over 20 points? How many times? 11 in this season, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying he can't get money and he can't score, but I'm talking about someone that when they get there, you're worried about getting Ja Morant, or you're gonna be at the rim and above the rim and finishing on a regular basis.
When you say Ja Moranted, you mean dunked on, not suspended, right?
Yeah, that part. Yeah. Got banged on.
Right.
And so I'm interested in the style. Asian disappointed.
You know what's funny? He actually ended up making more threes than Keisei did last year. But it was hit or miss. And Casey was a little hit or miss last year at times as well, which is where having the, other option of Rink Mass and then Bryce Williams as the third option kind of covered up for Casey being tops on that scouting report still. But I think, I don't know if I would say Esijan, it's hard to say if you look at the numbers, he disappointed Strick, but I'm with you in terms of consistent impact, right? And that's what we were worried about with him and really with the whole team. When Nebraska looked good, Nebraska looked good. Nebraska at its best was fine. They found ways to make it work. But the problem today against Iowa, the problem all season, Strick, was rarely being able to put together, 30 minutes of good basketball, let alone a full 40 minutes, right? Esijan was hit or miss. And yes, it's a make or miss game. But if he wasn't shooting, wasn't scoring, you could hardly play him. His energy was fine, but not enough defensive impact. He competed, but got cooked quite a bit, to be fair. So, yeah, the numbers will tell you Connor Esijan did his job. But in terms of night-to-night impact, Strick, I'm with you. Nebraska needs more out of him.
Well, there it is. What we got, Harrison?
We can keep it rolling for a little bit here, but we got one more segment in us for sure. So if you guys got anything left to add here, we can keep it rolling.
Let's take a break. I got a couple more things I think we can follow up on roster building. I'm going to plug Corner 3 here a couple times. Stricky's got WTF on Thursday nights. I've got Corner 3. Some of these numbers I dug into on Corner 3 already. So if you're not listening Friday nights at 6, that's kind of on you. But when we look at roster building, what kind of players does Nebraska need? I don't know about the kind of players, but I know there are two positions where Nebraska needs to get better to get back to the identity under Fred Hoiberg. Thanks to Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits, Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical. We'll talk about that to wrap up postgame on the other side.
At Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical, we're ready, reliable, and recommended. Water heater acting up or your sump pump on the fritz? Call Action. Summer's around the corner. Is your AC working? Are you sure? Call Action. Electrical problems? I'm telling you, call Action. Call Action for a free same-day estimate or a trusted second opinion. You heard that right, a free same-day estimate. 402-423-6960. ActionLincoln.com.
It may not feel like it, but planting season is on its way, and now's the time to upgrade your equipment with a late model John Deere planter from Acres Equipment. Acres has an entire lineup of John Deere planters equipped with the latest technology to ensure planting accuracy throughout your field. And to get you up and going, each planter purchased from Acres includes in-field startup support from one of our Precision Ag professionals. Warmer weather is coming soon, so don't delay. Visit your local Acres for details. Offer expires April 30th, 2025.
This is Bill Mitchner, Executive Director of Lincoln Lighthouse. Did you know Lighthouse provides multiple programs for students such as one-on-one tutoring and mentoring, as well as pro-social skill exercises, while providing them a nourishing meal and a safe space during all months of the year, even during school breaks? Learn more or contribute to Lighthouse at lincolnlighthouse.org today.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait. Apply now.
Hi, it's Joel Norman, the voice of your Lincoln Stars hockey team. Tune in to 93.7 The Ticket to hear the latest on the Stars with myself, head coach Rocky Russo, and special player guests.
Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits is your place in North Lincoln to go for all your needs in wine, spirits, and beer. They also have a large variety of cigars in their walk-in humidor, and they have a top-notch walk-in temperature-controlled high-end wine room. Plus, you can enjoy free samples from their tasting bar. There's only one place to go for all your needs for spirits and cigars. That's Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits on North 27th Street in Lincoln.
High school basketball fans, take a trip over to the Nebraska High School Sports Hall of Fame while you're in town for state hoops. Admission is free, and it's a great way to learn about some of the greatest athletes and teams to come out of the state, from recently to over 100 years ago in all sports. Learn more about names like Gale Sayers, Johnny Rogers, Bob Gibson, Tom Osborne, and more. Open Wednesday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. It's the Nebraska High School Sports Hall of Fame, just north of Haymarket Park at 500 Charleston Street.
I'm softball player Jordy Ball, and I'm proud of my Nebraska roots, and I'm proud to be back home. And at Midwest Bank, they're proud to be your local community bank. They believe in family first, taking initiative, showing integrity, and rolling up their sleeves to support their local communities. They treat everyone like family, no matter where you're from. Whether you walk into a branch in York, Lincoln, Norfolk, or Pierce, you know you're going to be welcomed with a smile. Your community, your bank, Midwest Bank.
Load up on meat and more this spring at the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese. This week's special through March 18th is 15% off Wickster seafood, 25% off Meat Mitch spices and sauces, corned beef for $9.99 per pound, and discounted Reuben brats while supplies last. Locations at 84th and Havelock, 30th and Yankee Hill, and now 85th and Old Cheney in Lincoln, or 168th and Maple in Omaha. Get to the Mercado today for the best meat in town.
All right, welcome back in. One final segment on the Husker Hoops postgame show. Again, as they fall to Iowa at home, we're still joined by Austin Orman, who's down there at the Vault, who just got the press conference as well. One more segment. You guys can always chime in. Any last-second thoughts? 402-464-5685. Facebook, YouTube, X. If you got Allo Cable, Allo Channel 961. Austin Orman, we've been about everywhere on this team, from beginning of the year expectations to end of year thoughts. I'll go give it to you. Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to YouTube first. Debo, wait, Nebraska isn't in the Big Ten tournament. How? Because of tiebreakers. Debo, that's how. Because some teams that ended up passing Nebraska. Let me see if I can get this bracket pulled back up. So you look at the teams kind of at the bottom of the standings. Ohio State at the 10. Nebraska split the season series with them. At 11, Rutgers ends up, I believe, a game better than Nebraska, plus would have had head-to-head. Number 12, Minnesota beat Nebraska in the one matchup here in Lincoln. Nebraska did end up beating Northwestern out in Evanston, but the Wildcats had tiebreakers over USC and then Iowa as well. Obviously, Nebraska lost the one matchup of the season here in Pinnacle Bank Arena to USC, as well as both matchups to Iowa. So tiebreakers don't fall in Nebraska's favor, and overall record not in Nebraska's favor as well. I do want to go here then, Harrison, with roster construction. I really think there are two important positions for Nebraska to target this offseason. Number one is going...
Guess there?
Yeah, take a guess, please.
Point guard and post.
Kind of.
Okay, let's hear it.
Kind of. I'll start with point guard since you brought it up. There was a lot of conversation last year about, Nebraska needs a true point guard this, Nebraska needs a true point guard that. I still don't necessarily think that's the case in the first 20 seconds of the shot clock, right? Strick talks about the free flow, the dribble handoff, all that stuff. That's great if Nebraska gets some early offense from it, but Nebraska didn't consistently get early offense from that. So then the last 10 seconds of the shot clock is where Nebraska needs some more either creativity from play calling or creativity from play makers. Nebraska went and got that traditional point guard in Raleigh Wooster, didn't pay the dividends they were hoping for. Same with Aaron Eulis. Nebraska took a chance on him. That didn't add anything, right? So then you're back to Sam Hoiberg trying to run some point, or especially Bryce Williams. And I still don't love the idea of point Bryce Williams, but Nebraska had to do that at times to get him the ball back, right? We heard that from Fran McCaffrey in postgame, right? They tried to limit Bryce Williams' touches as soon as he gave the ball up. It didn't work for Nebraska throughout the course of the year. Once Bryce Williams gave the ball up, it was hard for him to get it back because he was being face guarded, because he was being denied. So in that case, Nebraska needed a lead guard who could take the ball and make something out of a pick and roll or break the defense down by getting by their man off the dribble. They didn't have that, right? So I don't want to have the true point guard conversation again this offseason because it didn't work. And I still don't think it's necessary if everything else on the roster is working as planned. But for really 2 years in a row now, when things don't go as planned, which they won't always in the Big Ten, when they, get to these multi-team events, you don't always get your plan A, you don't always get your plan B. Having a guy that can take over and have plan C be he's going to go get a tough one when the moment calls for it, not hijack the offense, but when you need to go get a bucket, this guy can go get you one. That's going to be high on the list. I think it should be, and it's not going to be cheap for Nebraska. The other sneaky biggest spot on the roster, well, let me finish up with that. The guys I'm thinking about from Fred Hoiberg's teams that have been able to do that, again, shout out Corner 3 here. I went over this with my Fred Hoiberg All-Stars team around NBA All-Star Weekend. DeAndre Kane was a transfer into Iowa State, all Big 12 caliber player for 2 straight years, right? Nebraska hasn't had a DeAndre Kane under Fred Hoiberg. You think about Deontay Garrett before that, and then the guy that I think Nebraska could really use is Monty Morris. DeAndre Kane was probably the best overall player, but Monty Morris might fit what Fred Hoiberg wants to accomplish here at Nebraska, right? So getting a point guard, a lead guard, as how I'll describe it moving forward, a lead guard who can, pick you up when you're not going well, who can make things flow when they are going right, that's huge. The sneaky biggest recruit of the offseason, though, for Nebraska, Harrison, is Rink Mast and a healthy Rink Mast, right? We've talked about this a number of times, what Rink Mast was able to do for Nebraska in terms of providing an identity. You saw that on full display because of what you didn't see from Nebraska. So getting Rink Mast back and healthy and back is, I think, priority number one of the offseason for Nebraska in my case, because before this year, the two guys to lead Nebraska in assists the last 2 years were Derek Walker and Rink Mast. Playing through a difference-making identity big man has also been Fred Hoiberg's style. Not a low post back to the basket bruiser necessarily, but that stretch 4.5, that stretch 5, whatever it is. Having a taller player who can help you break pressure, who can help you initiate offense, that has been the identity of the Fred Hoiberg system. It's why what he's done has worked so well in years past, right? The name that comes to mind from Iowa State is George Niang, who played the 4, who played a little bit of 5 in cases. Royce White on the wing, he was a 3 or a 4, a playmaking big man. Again, they're not easy to find, but not every system.
I ask you, does it feel like that's kind of the hill he died on this year? Maybe assuming Berke Berukhtengel was going to be that replacement.
Potentially, right? And this is where I would love, in a moment of pure, unfiltered honesty from Fred Hoiberg, to know what the plan was for Berke Berukhtengel, right? Because he and Rink Mast are not the same player. Just because they're both European and they're both hypothetically stretched big men, they're not the same player. They have their differences. But this is where my question would be, Harrison, is what was the vision for Berke Berukhtengel, right? Because we didn't see very many moments at all where it looked like Berke Berukhtengel was the heir apparent to Rink Mast in terms of play, but also in terms of what he was being asked to do, right? Nebraska didn't use Berke Berukhtengel and Rink Mast in the same ways. And I'd love to know if that's because they viewed them as different players, or if Berke Berukhtengel proved in practice that he wasn't the same type of player as Rink Mast, and Nebraska had to pivot. Because I still think the pathway, the avenue is there for Berke Berukhtengel to fill that Rink Mast role, and especially with Rink Mast on the bench, right? If you get Rink Mast, great. You have a ready-made backup for him in 2 years who will spell Rink Mast. They'd probably both end up playing 20, 22 minutes per game if they're both on the same team. Or if Rink Mast doesn't come back next year after he graduates with his master's degree, you have a full year of reps for Berke Berukhtengel in that role that you want to use him as. And we just didn't see that, right? The ball handling, the passing certainly weren't there. Berke Berukhtengel surely didn't match Rink Mast as a shooter this year. I mean, the practice numbers must be off the charts, but actual in-game numbers just weren't there. I still think the staff views Berke Berukhtengel as a foundational piece of what they want to do, which is why it confounds me that from the outside looking in, there's not a whole lot of clarity on what his role is going to be on next year's team.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest asset he was this year, just in my opinion, was just defensively, an energy guy, but like his shot selection at times made me wonder a lot. Like, is he, supposed to be the Rink Mast of this offense, at least in terms of offensively. And, you got the text line all fired up here. Lots of point guard. Yeah, I totally agree. But even, if it's not an absolute shoe-in for an elite point guard, I mean, today, the way the game's played, it's positionless basketball that if you can find a playmaking 4, a playmaking 5, a playmaking 3, 2, 1, I don't care which position they're on, but you just have to have guys that are able to make those tough passes, that are able to see what the defense is trying to counter. What are the strengths of yours that they're trying to halt? And as soon as you can figure out, that's how Jokic, since we'll bring him up, since he dropped 22 assists, that's how Jokic gets 22 assists, right? He's constantly analyzing what is the defense trying to stop right now. And it's that high IQ play. And it doesn't really matter at what position, because last year it certainly helped. We're better in that department. But Rink Mass, to your point, and Derek Walker the year before that, they were the ones dropping most of the dimes for everybody. And again, that's, if you do have that this year with, maybe it was Burkett, even if it's not, but somebody at that 4 spot, all of a sudden we're at the end of the year and we're probably talking a lot more highly of Braxton Mia. We're probably talking a lot more highly of Andrew Morgan, because those guys' games would unlock. Maybe not so much Morgan, but certainly Braxton Mia, if he just sits in that dunker spot, he'll get some easy buckets. And unfortunately this year, it just kind of compounds with you. You might have whiffed with Burke Bear-Uchtengel, and on top of that, the guys that you brought along with it in terms of Morgan, in terms of Braxton Mia in particular, those also kind of pan out in duds as well, because now you don't have a player to unlock their game.
That's a big piece of it. And I would phrase it this way. I mean, Nebraska's punch, its go-to punch, if you think about it in boxing, wasn't always strong enough, wasn't always quick enough, right? And that was Bryce Williams, right? Teams found a way to shut the water off for him. Despite, the school record performance, despite the number of times he scored 20 points, it was kind of all or nothing in the scoring column for Bryce Williams at times this year. Mm-hmm. So in that case, right, Fred Hoiberg was asked about this, when teams take away Bryce Williams like that, where does Nebraska have to get better? He said Nebraska didn't play out of the pocket very well. And what that means is that pocket pass right on a pick and roll, where you get that kind of short roll to a big man or a screener at the top of the key, inside the arc around the free throw line, or in the middle of the paint, right? You get the ball to them there. You have a numbers advantage. It's typically 3-on-2. Occasionally it's 4-on-3, especially when teams would pick Bryce Williams up higher up the floor, really blitz him, get the ball out early there. You have a numbers advantage. That's what you live to create as an offense. If you've created a numbers advantage, you have done the first half of your job. Now, the second half of the job is making the shot and converting that numbers opportunity, right? Which is why it just confounds me when teams struggle in transition. It's not that hard. It's simple math. 1 or 2 quick passes, you should have the shot you want. Sometimes Nebraska got those shots and missed them, right? You need more shooters. You need a deeper bench of shooters who are going to knock down those open shots when they get them. But too often, Harrison, Nebraska didn't make the right play, which is basketball IQ. And that's another piece of it where Nebraska played itself out of the advantage pretty quickly. So sometimes Nebraska's first punch just didn't work, let alone Nebraska rarely having a counterpunch.
Well, and this kind of goes back to, earlier we were talking, comparing Connor Seagen and Casey Tominaga. If you look at the numbers, you might be pleasantly surprised about Connor Seagen's numbers. Those last 5 games kind of just soured people's mouth, not only on him, but the entire team. It wasn't all that bad. There's actually a lot of
coming into tonight. In his previous 5 games, Seagen was at 38% from 3.
Yeah, and
the number, you do in the season. In the scope of the season.
What I was trying to make here is the difference was the games where he was ineffective from the 3-point line. It's that counter. What did Casey do? He was a great finisher. He really was around the rim, knowing ways to penetrate when they're trying to stop the 3-point shot. How do I counter this on the scouting report? He'd catch people off guard all the time by going back door, things like that. I mean, that all goes into that IQ that you're talking about.
It does, and goes into, does he have a passer willing to look for him with their head up and to make the pass? All that to say, Nebraska has a lot of issues, and yet at the same time, Nebraska's not that far off. Think about how many one-score tight games Nebraska lost. How many games was Nebraska, maybe a bucket away from making even more interesting and putting real game pressure on an opponent? If ifs and buts were candy and nuts and all that, I get it. But I just circle back to, it just feels so much like football, Harrison, in terms of the vibe, where the record is what the record is. for better or for worse some seasons, you look at it and you say, yeah, Nebraska's so far away. They have so much to fix. We've been going for darn near an hour and a half on everything that went wrong. It's a laundry list. And yet it's very simple at the end of the day to distill what it is Nebraska needs to do on the court and off the court to put itself in a better position next year. And that's just the darndest thing, is that a year like this hasn't brought clarity. You would hope that last year had brought clarity to this program, and where it saw, this is the identity we're going to roll with. This is how we're going to make our hay in the Big Ten. This is the type of player that we need. This year just muddied the waters. If it was a complete train wreck, went completely off the rails, maybe you could point to last year as a fluke and say, yep, no, we've seen enough. That's going to be that. This year wasn't a resounding success where he said, yep, they found it, they unlocked it, they know what they are, feels like Nebraska's on the right track. No, Nebraska's in purgatory right now. That's kind of the worst place to be when you look at trying to build a program, sustain a program, figure out what it is a program needs, because if you put money into it, that whatever the next thing for Nebraska is this offseason and it doesn't work, it feels like a wasted investment. But if you never put that money into it to begin with, it makes it next to impossible for it to ever take off. Nebraska is just not in a good spot right now, like you thought they were heading into the offseason at this point last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wrap things up here, I try not to end on a cynical note, but, DP says this all the time, and I agree with him, not just because he's my boss, but, the signs of a healthy program is, do you end the season with less questions than when you started? Unfortunately, this is a year where we have more questions. Austin Norman, final thoughts before we get out of here.
Yeah, Nebraska ought to play in the probably going to be headed to Vegas during the week of the Elite Eight, would be my guess, for the college basketball crown. That is far from a given. If Nebraska misses the postseason this year, oh boy. A lot of what I said can be completely thrown in the trash. Not all of it. Please still listen. I'm done sometimes. I get it right occasionally. But for the final postgame of the regular season, I want to shout out Lincoln Wall-to-Wall Wine and Spirits and Action Plumbing, Heating, AC, and Electrical for their sponsorship. We appreciate you guys. It was fun at times. It was brutal at times. Hopefully we have a postgame or two coming up.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us. Husker Hoops postgame show. We'll talk to you guys throughout the rest of the Sunday night here. Appreciate you listening.
Experience the Landmark difference with the next level of dealer support. Landmark, your local John Deere dealer, continually works to have parts on hand the first time you walk in the door. Our internal route system means we can get the parts to you typically same